My husband is one of those people that can ride a roller coaster, but he cannot see what is happening. Otherwise, he won't want to ride it. Is anybody else like that? Like they don't really like roller coasters, some of those things. Well, we went to Cedar Point and somehow we got front row seats on the Valraven. So for those of you who don't know, the front row on that ride is probably, in my opinion, the scariest one. Because before you go down, there's this 90-degree drop, and you spend about 5 to 10 seconds dangling over the edge, staring down at the ground. Other two rows, you're just kind of sitting there, basically like you went and you stopped, and then the ride actually starts. But for the front row, you're literally like facing the ground. And my husband, bless his heart, was in the front row with me because I love this ride. And he spent the whole 5 to 10 seconds screaming his entire head off. Literally, it was dead silence. No one else was screaming, just him, before the ride even began. So even though he knew that the harness was secure and he could trust that the ride was safe, he was still afraid, staring down at the ground. How many times have we been in a similar situation? We know that we're protected, we know that we're safe, and yet we look at the circumstances around us where maybe we're staring at something really scary and we're afraid. We see this in Matthew 14:22 through 33. See, the disciples had gone out on a boat and they didn't have Jesus with them. They had gone out on a boat, and Jesus went up to a mountain to pray. And when evening came, he was there alone, but the boat by this time was a long way from land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, and they said, "It's a ghost!" And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And he said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat, and he walked on the water, and he came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." See, Peter let his fear and circumstances overcome his trust in Jesus. How often do we behave like Peter? We take that leap of faith and then we quickly let fear overcome us. We flounder in our calling because we forget the one who let us walk out of the boat in the first place. What's interesting with Peter is that he saw with his own eyes, he saw Jesus raise a girl from the dead. He saw people healed of their diseases. He saw Jesus cast out demons, yet he lost sight of who he was walking to. He let the waves and his fear stop him from seeing Jesus. Yet Jesus immediately reached out his hand. He was never going to let Peter drown. We can take comfort in knowing that Jesus will never let us drown. Even though the circumstances seem all-consuming and our fears find us sinking, we can take heart in knowing that Jesus reaches his hand out and takes hold of us. Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? How many times do we think this? We see ourselves sinking. We were following him, but we lost sight of Jesus. It's not going to be easy. There are circumstances that are hard, that are going to make us afraid. But the challenge I have for you is, are you going to keep your eyes on Jesus, or are you going to allow yourself to sink? It's so important in this passage that Jesus reached out his hand and took hold. Right? We're walking towards our Savior. We're walking towards our deliverer. The one who let us walk on the water in the first place. Even though we can get really caught up in our calling and we can get caught up in this thing called life, remember who you're walking to. and who is reaching out his hand for you. Thank you.